everyone, welcome to Hong Kong. And I'm from Hong Kong Baptist University. I'm sorry that my co-author Shannon could not make it to Hong Kong, so I'm presenting for both of us. So you can see the title of our presentation is the Ethical Social Media Engagement During Crisis. And then we hope to use two cases to illustrate the importance of taking ethics into consideration when doing crisis response. Okay, and just a little recap and about the importance of social media nowadays. And you know that Wright and Hinson, they annually conduct social media survey. And then in 2008, you can see this great percentage of the participants, they think that public relation, that social media has become more important nowadays in the practices. And then they also think that organizations, they were forced to respond because of the social media spread message spread so quickly, and then organizations need to address to those crisis issues. Okay, let me skip this part. And some of you probably have watched this, have known this already. That is Edelman's new media ecosystem. And for this one, our interpretation is that this integrate how organizations can use different forms of media to communicate with publics. And it also shows that how media flow among these different forms of communication. And then the third is how public can obtain information via different forms of the media. And then next one, that is from my good friends, Yan and Lucinda and Brooke. Yeah, Brooke. Yeah, they're social SCCM model, SCCM. And then this one, from this you can see that how different forms of media, like social media, traditional media, and also offline word of mouth, that affect the information flow. And also here, that social media creators, they could affect their followers, and by word of mouth, and then also organizations' use of media, that can also affect those social media inactives. So what does this mean? This means that when organizations doing crisis communication, they need to understand the different forms of the media and how the players, how different stakeholders will involve in this and receive information. So organizations cannot just only rely on its website to send out messages at the time of the crisis. Okay, and since our topic is about ethics, so we also want to talk a little bit about the ethical guidelines that we use for this study. And as you know, that Shannon Bowen is a big expert on ethics. And then she took the categorical imperative to develop the ethical guidelines for social media use. There are three major points. The first, that when we make decisions or take actions, we should eliminate any cultural bias and eliminate our own preferences when we are making decisions, and treat others with respect. So the second is that we need to maintain dignity and respect. And then the third point is we need to make sure that we have goodwill, good intention in making the decisions. So you can see here, these are the ethical guidelines that Bowen developed. And in all, there are 15. And actually, for all these 15 guidelines, we found that there are a couple guidelines that probably is not applicable to our study. So we will only use 13 guidelines. And these guidelines, you can see that involve being fair, and then show respect to each individual, and then avoid secrecy and make sure that communication is transparent. Organizations need to be responsible. They need to have good intention. And then make sure that they can build trust. And since when a crisis happened, that means trust and relationship is broken. As a result, we need to ensure that there are the elements of authenticity and dialogues in dealing with the crisis. So let me touch on briefly. Authenticity. that means that what we need to provide the access for genuine and substantial dialogues, and then by providing truthful information, and we need to respect the views from different stakeholders. For Shen and Kim, they developed the 3 dimensions for authenticity. That is truthfulness, transparency, and consistency. So you can see that actually these 3 dimensions were actually incorporated in the ethical guidelines for social media use. Since Ovin has talked a lot about dialogue and I don't have much time, so just want to let you know, like we want to enforce that dialogues in the social media use for crisis communication because of the characteristics of interactivity and also two-way communication, so that publics, they will understand how organizations handle the crisis, and public can also raise their concern and expect that organizations can provide the responses. As I said that we provide 2 cases to study, so I will be very quick to go over these 2 cases. Maybe some of the Hong Kong participants have heard about this infamous Dolce & Gabbana photo ban like in early January. What happened was, on January 3rd, there was a post on Hong Kong blog claiming that the 2 women, they were prohibited to take photos in front of Dolce & Gabbana shop in a nearby shopping mall, Harbour City. But many visitors, they were allowed to take photos. So you know that created this kind of like anger and then conflicts among like Hong Kong people and mainlanders. And then what was worse, that the store staff and security guard, they think that the public area outside the store to be the private property. You know, this would not make any sense. And then, of course, Hong Kong reporters, they were not allowed to take photo as well. And then Dolce & Gabbana said this is because they want to protect their intellectual property. And that is also not making any sense. And then their security staff using the threatening language, saying that they will destroy the camera from any Hong Kong people that taking photo. And then following, there were like a lot of protests against Dolce & Gabbana, and then people even said on a Facebook page, there is this Facebook page that they want to call for action to protest Dolce & Gabbana. So on January 8th, a lot of people gathering up in front of Dolce & Gabbana to protest, and they also take photos of Dolce & Gabbana to tell them that, okay, we don't care. So they have the slogan saying that Dolce & Gabbana go home and shame. And then Dolce & Gabbana was forced to issue a statement, but this statement was not successful. That further angered Hong Kong public because, let me show you the English part here. And then Dolce & Gabbana said that it is regrettable that, Dolce & Gabbana has been brought into this matter. So what does this mean? Dolce & Gabbana victimized itself, thinking that they had nothing to do with this. So of course, Hong Kong people further, they got more angry. And then the comments on Facebook from Dolce & Gabbana's staff that further worsened the conflict. So you can see it here. But however, on the same day, the security guard at Harbour City, which is the shopping mall where the store is, they apologized to the public for this conflict, but Dolce & Gabbana refused to apologize. So, because of the huge pressure and the concern about large scale of boycott on Dolce & Gabbana, so more than 2 weeks later, Dolce & Gabbana posted on its official Facebook page, and then they apologize that they offend Hong Kong people. So this is Chinese part, and then this is the English part. On the first paragraph, you see that Dolce & Gabbana say, "We are truly sorry and we apologize." But this would not help solve the problem because the impression and image has formed, and they know that Dolce & Gabbana was forced to do so. The second case is, maybe some of you know this very famous Hai Di Lao hot pot restaurant. It's a chain restaurant in mainland China. And then it has a good reputation. And then this good reputation really helped the hot pot restaurant during the crisis. what happened was 2011, almost midnight, August 22nd, there was an article on website talking about this hotpot chain restaurant. And even though this report was unbiased, but large attention was paid on some problems caused by some problems in this restaurant. So what will you do? This chain restaurant chain quickly issued a statement, and then they mentioned that they confirmed the media report. That is for one, and then but they said that all the materials they use are from the very reliable source of the suppliers, but they own public the apology. And then they still welcome public to continue monitor the restaurant's behavior. The second statement, also issued on the same day, they further report about what they have done. For example, they report themselves to the concerned government authority, and then thank everyone's support and criticize, and then they promise that they apologize. The third one. That was the next day. What they said is they further admit that the soup base that in this hot pot was diluted from concentration, and then they said they never promote that all the soup base was from all the natural ingredients, but they still apologized again. So, and then they provide an explanation on why they did not allow their employees to take media inquiry. So this is the last statement from the CEO. And then as you can see, let me quickly explain that the CEO said all the responsibility is on him. And then he also wants to protect the employees by sending psychologists to do some counseling among his employees. And then he said, if there's any problem happening again, that will be all his responsibility. So we hope to understand, I'm sorry, I don't have much time. Okay, so what we want to know is how is the performance of this organization's crisis communication in terms of ethic, authenticity, and dialogues. And then we try to look for as much information as possible, and then we search for their social media information, and then there were huge comments from the netizens. But since we focus on the intention of organizations in dealing crisis, so in this part we only focus on how organizations explain to the public. So for Dolce & Gabbana, we study Facebook, their Facebook page, because in Hong Kong Facebook is more common. And then this hot pot restaurant, because since this case happened started on Weibo and also ended in Weibo. So we also started their statement. I don't have much time, so how about I jump here? And then we use the guideline to analyze both organizations, how they respond to the conflicts. So you can see that Dolce & Gabbana basically fell because they were not being fair for people from mainland China and also to Hong Kong people. And then they would not think about how Hong Kong people feel, and they would not want to take responsibility, and then they shift the blame, and their behavior would not encourage any good, and they lost building trust among Hong Kong people. But from here you can see that there is one point that we are skeptical, that is avoid deception from this hot pot restaurant, because they say, oh, we never promote that our soup is from all natural ingredients. Maybe they already have this such intention. So how about I just jump to the conclusion? Okay, so the discussion part is that it's confirmed Kuhn's theory that when there is human error crisis, organization is best using accommodative measures to handle the crisis. Organizations, when they use defensive approach to deal with this kind of crisis, will also further enhance the image, the impression of the organization being unethical. And then what we find out that is, even though that organization, they think that, okay, we put everything on the website, but they never understand that, like publics, that nowadays, we don't just only go to the website, we use social media a lot. And then we found out that for Dolce & Gabbana, it seems that if you go to their Facebook page, all they do is promoting their products, their clothes, cosmetics, but even the apology statement they post on Facebook was already removed. So it seems that they don't consider social media is the major communication channel for them to deal crisis. All right, one last point. That, as you can see here, that Edelman's, this new media ecosystem and this SCCM that we introduced earlier, that help to explain the dynamics of the communication flow at the time of the crisis. So what organizations need to do is they need to learn this kind of dynamics and then choose all those communication channels so that they can make sure that the same message can reach to different sectors of the society. Because nowadays, it is sort of like becoming an ethical obligation for organizations to communicate well by utilizing different communication channels so that they can understand what publics are thinking. They can take the stakeholders' interest in mind, and then they can show their genuine attitude and taking responsibility. So that this is what we call the ethical engagement for crisis communication via social media. Thank you.
I thought it was very interesting also because it was two companies, like one was Chinese and the other one is an Italian company. So I wonder, how they would have reacted if that had happened in Italy. So maybe they would have reacted, I don't know, more accommodative. So I think this is a really, really interesting research question. To maybe look at the different crises, like how do they react in their country, or where they could relate to the people more. Or in China, and maybe my question, so this wasn't a question, this was a statement, but a question, do you think that companies have to respond differently depending on, like in China or Hong Kong than in maybe Italy or in the US?
I think, of course, that organizations, they need to take into mind that, there are some local characteristics in each in different places. So this is why I don't understand why Dolce & Gabbana would refuse to apologize and taking this defensive approach in the first place, because Dolce & Gabbana has not been in Hong Kong, just a short period of time. They should understand their, this kind of negative sentiment of the conflict between Hong Kong and mainlanders. So they need to be more careful in dealing with that. And because we are unable to interview Dolce & Gabbana, so I don't know their mindset that why they don't understand this kind of sensitive issue and further, worsen the relationship between Hong Kong and mainland China. I agree with you, yes, then we really need to take into account of the local characteristics when we are dealing crisis. But I believe that, these ethical guidelines can help to serve as a good foundation for organizations to choose their crisis response strategy. Yeah. One more question.
They could have been analyzing the stakeholder groups by how much their sales are from the mainland versus Hong Kong. That was speculated during that time. Any thoughts on that?
Well, actually, what I did not put into this deck is, because this is not the confirmed information, so I'm not sure. But the reason why Dolce & Gabbana were so strong in prohibiting Hong Kong journalists to take photo was because there were some very important high-level government officials shopping at the store, and then they did not want to be photographed because that would leave the impression of corruption. So as a result, but this, I don't know, this is what I heard, and probably that is rumor, but I have heard of this several times. But the thing is, the thing is, maybe, it is Dolce & Gabbana's concern, and it is not the only store right now in Hong Kong that they know that mainland visitors has more purchasing power. But still, when they are handling their business, ethics should still serve as the foundation. It is not where you are from. It is whether the behavior from the organization is ethical in dealing with each individual and showing respect to individual.